Let's start seated. And we'll build our way up from that stack. So something comfy, supportive. And anchoring here. Let the eyes close if it feels comfortable for you. Let the breath just move in to the expression of exchange between the air you're breathing and the air you're giving. We'll give ourselves about 40 more seconds here. And when you feel right, when you feel ready, let's bring our left arm out kind of zombie height, right at shoulder height on turn so that it looks a little bit angle better. And from this, just pull your wrists up and splay your fingers out nice and wide. So make kind of like a big high five hand. Just roll the wrist out to the left edge of your mat and then bring the hand back to neutral and then over towards the right edge of your mat. This shoulder rotation, wrist rotation, kind of the whole arm is involved here. We'll come back to neutral and release. You feel that musculature just kind of ooze, and then let's take that over the second side, the right side. We go straight out, roughly shoulder height, and then bring those fingers up and out as wide as you can get them. Go out towards the right edge of your mat. And back to neutral. And then over towards the left edge of the mat. And back to neutral. Relax your palms up for just a moment. Just a little restoration to the arm's ability to move. And then when the left arm feels ready again, we're going to go back out to that zombie style. Fingers go up, splay the fingers out nice and wide. And we're just going to do some full wrist circles here. This is more isolated to the wrist itself. Pick one direction. And try to keep those fingers splayed out. It's a super challenge. And then we'll reverse direction. And it's pretty darn surprising how fatiguing this can be. When you're right, we release that left arm down so it just can kind of settle into that jello mold, and then right arm's gonna come up at shoulder height, fingertips go up, and then we start those circles in one of the directions. A lot of forearm musculature, even all the way up into the shoulder attachment, though, can be fatiguey here. And then obviously a lot of that supportive musculature around the wrist can also be fatiguey. And we'll reverse the direction. These are just not shapes that we move in very frequently. Obviously, our body has the ability to do this, but it's not something we find our way into. When you feel like you've had enough, maybe, or relax, let the palms come up, and just a little recovery, rejuvenation here for the arms and shoulders. Feel how there's some softness in the shoulder girdle already, though, and just kind of let your body settle into that without collapsing into the torso. Let's transition to hands and knees tabletop. So hands and knees tabletop. As you settle here, you're gonna feel, or you may feel, forearms have some additional fatigue that you may not be accustomed to. Great opportunity to really work into the finger mounds and fingerprints. So shift that weight into the front of the hands and feel that connection. Then let's curl our toes and lift our seat back into down dog. We actually have a pretty good amount of down dog space already from the shoulder girdle. So try to get all the way into that, even if bending the knees is required to open up the lower half of the posterior chain. And then let's walk ourselves forward into fold. In your fold, we'll inhale into half lift. Settle right back into your fold, top of the head. Let's go here. Settle all the way into that shape. Really elongate the top of the head. Beautiful. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. Now let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Come all the way into this top space. Settle across the shoulders. And then establish your mountain. So feet are ingrained into the mat. Really feel the toe prints holding you. The calves are active, quads are active, glutes are active, quads really counterbalancing that glute engagement. And then let's bring our hands to heart center. Try to feel the upper body mirror the engagement of the lower body. So as we come to this midpoint, really feel anchored through the trunk. And then push the fingers interlace and we'll push the palms away. So we end up with, again, a little shoulder activation. And with the next inhale, we'll sweep the arms up and overhead. If it's too much to have the palms away from you, do the palms down. Make sure that you're protecting your shoulders here. And then let's exhale, we'll come right back to shoulder height. And just find a round of breath. And then we're going to use an exhale again to go up and overhead. And then we'll use an exhale to come back to shoulder height. And let's do that one more time. We'll exhale up. And exhale to shoulder height. And then we're going to come right back to heart center. And now you may feel some pretty good shoulder fatigue. Settle in here. Take a 10% bend to the knees for chair. So like a 10% chair. And try to keep that torso activation and elongation. And then rise back up. Sweep the arms and exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Push from the toe mounds, toe prints through the top of your head. So feel that whole body engagement in this half lift. Exhale all the way back into the fold. Plant your hands, walk yourself back into down dog. Get all the way into the full depth of that shape. And then let's come down to hands and knees tabletop. From tabletop, we'll flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. And as you settle back into child's pose, pay attention to how the shoulders are communicating with you. It's maybe not necessarily likely, but certainly highly possible that the shoulders are going to be speaking a language of fatigue already. If they're feeling fatigued, you can always slide the hands back to the heels. That's a nice way to help the shoulders recover quickly. And we'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds to allow for that possibility of shoulder recovery. And then when you're feeling right, when you're feeling ready, hands slide back in front of you. We'll inhale, pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, let's once again curl our toes, lift our seat, find our way back into down dog, and we'll walk ourselves forward to fold. Inhale into half lift. Find that toe print to top of the head engagement once again, then exhale back into your fold. At the bottom of your fold with your head completely let go, plant the hand, slide your left foot straight back into lunge, and sweep both arms up and into crescent. Want to get into this top shape, expressing that full shoulder engagement. Lay those hands out nice and wide, feel the shoulder strength. And then roll open into warrior two. Left heel grounds. We get nice and wide through the shoulder girdle, push through those fingertips. Feel how the feet are anchored and just make sure you have a nice parallel line with both edges of your front foot and both edges of the mat. And then spin the left heel back up. We're into crescent. We'll float the hands down to the mat and step forward to a nice fold. Let go completely into that fold. Feel the right glute, left glute potential in balance and try to balance across the sacrum. If you're in class yesterday morning, we did a lot of sacral balance. So just drift that awareness right there. And then as the head lets go completely into this shape, plant your hands and we'll slide the right foot straight back into lunge. Sweep ourselves up and into crescent. From the top of the shape, splay those fingers out, get that shoulder activation, feel the strength in the shoulder girdle, then ground the right heel. We roll open to warrior two. Big wide expansiveness as you press those fingers and broaden out through the collarbone space. If you can create more room for your breath. And then right heel spins up, we're back in crescent. Float the hands down to the mat, we'll step back forward. Nice open fold here. Inhale into half lift. Exhale all the way back into fold. Think about settling across that hip space. Yeah, beautiful. Plant your hands. We'll walk back into plank. And from plank, let's just lower right down onto our belly. Come onto our belly. Hands stay right where they are. So roughly underneath the shoulders. Fingers splay out nice and wide. Flex the quads and take the toe mounds to the mat. So we end up forehead anchored, hands gripping the mat, quads flexed, kneecaps lifted, tops of the feet pressing in. There's a real potential here if we don't get enough belly engagement, enough anterior musculature engagement, that will collapse in the lumbar spine. So make sure that the toe mound lift is not creating a mid-body collapse. Glutes can be involved in that, but it's a lot of core work. And we'll just hold this for 10 more seconds. And when you're ready, relax. Tops of the feet can flip. Hands can slide underneath the forehead for a little crocodile pose. And we'll just ease here once again. Pay attention to the shoulders and the hips in particular. We're actually going to use shoulders and hips kind of as our doorway into our length this evening. And we'll give ourselves about 50 more seconds here. So there's this seeker who is constantly on the lookout for to expand. What it essentially comes down to, ways to get better, ways to feel better, ways to solve those inner struggles. And he's gone through thing after thing after thing. And of course, found his way to yoga. When all else fails, time for yoga. When you're right, when you're ready, fingertips slide back underneath the shoulders, bring some strength into the musculature just above the knees. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. Hands and knees tabletop. Let's curl the toes, lift the seat, find the way back into down dog. And from down dog, Step your left foot right next to your left hand. So the pinky edge of your left foot and the index finger of your left hand are, if not touching, they're very good friends. And then ground your right heel. So we have a warrior one alignment here. There's a couple of places we can likely already feel, right? We start to activate that left hamstring. We start to activate that right hip. We want to bring the strength into the front of the left hip. So really pull that back until you feel the top of the quad and the hip really integrate there. Then sweep yourself straight up into warrior one. So hips point straight forward, shoulders point straight forward. We have that perfect straightforward gaze. Palms are up, fingers are splayed out wide. We have the strength across the shoulder girdle. That pinky toe edge of our right foot is active, and so is the arch edge. So really feel the arch of that back foot and the pinky toe itself activating. And just spin your right heel up, find crescent. There's more room in the anterior right hip here. Settle into that by driving back into that right heel and feel the left hamstring relax and sink into that space as well. Then float the hands down on the mat. We'll step the left foot back into down dog. Sway into this link, create that space. And then the right foot's gonna step up next to the right hand. Again, pinky edge right next to that index finger, really as close as you can comfortably get it. Then we slide the left foot down, that heel grounds, and right away we can feel where the body is short. Think about giving strength to the front of the right hip, activating into that hamstring, and feeling that lateral edge of the left hip as you sweep yourself straight up and into warrior one, side two. Hips are pointed straight forward. It looks like on screen I'm a little bit open, and I may be, but I think part of that's optical illusion-y. Think about balancing the belly space too, so we have that nice flat neutral anterior and get that lift. And then when you feel like you've had that activation from the back foot, all of the strength of the shape, we spin up. We get into a crescent that's relatively deep, just in the width itself, but then sink into that front hamstring, let that thing work. Put the hands down on the mat, and we'll step the right foot back into down dog. Balance out here, sway here, feel your strength, and then we'll walk ourselves forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Let the head go. Feel the fatigue of the hamstrings from the depth of the shape, right? We get into some new hamstring tissue. We start to find some new fibrous connections to elongate. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. And let's roll ourselves up nice and slow all the way into mountain. Come into mountain here. Hands will come to heart center. We're gonna do that same finger interlace. Let's see if I can find a spot where I don't blend in. Finger interlace, palms away if it's accessible. And then we'll inhale. We're inhaling this time. So we're inhaling up. And then inhaling back to shoulder height. Inhale up. And then inhale back to shoulder height. And last time, we'll inhale up. And inhale back to shoulder height. And then hands come back to heart center. And we'll sink back into maybe about 50% of the way back into chair. So a pretty good increase from where we were before, but we're not taxing the full depth of the shape. Hamstrings aren't really having to hold us. It's a quad shape here. And then we'll rise back up, sweep the arms up and overhead, and exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide your right foot straight back into lunge. Ground your right heel and decide if you can come up into warrior one from here. So if you need to, you can walk that left foot. We cheated because we stepped the left foot up a little bit wider last time. So feel if that feels better than where you are now. And if it is, just make that adjustment. And then we'll sweep ourselves back into warrior one. hips are forward, shoulders are forward, settle into that shape. Then bring your hands out to zombie height and interlace the fingers. Palms can go away from us if that's accessible. And then all we're gonna do is drive back into the left hamstring. So we feel some strength on that left side, on the back of the left leg. And then bend the knee. Find that little bit of extra depth. Slide back into the hamstring. And then bend the knee. Find that little bit of extra depth. And then one last time, we'll slide back into the hamstring. This time, sweep your arms straight up. And then give yourself the full depth of this warrior one. This is a big warrior one. And spin your right heel up. Slide the hands down to the mat. And then step forward and into a nice asymmetrical forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. So curious as you settle back in here, the asymmetry is mostly on the anterior side. Most of the time when we're getting off left to right, we're feeling that in the posterior chain. But for most of us, we're gonna feel that right in the front of the right hip here. So as you settle into your fold, see if you can allow that left side to relax into the same depth as your right. And then when you're ready, when you feel balanced, weight distribution is even on both feet, we'll slide the left foot straight back, ground that left heel, and make our same decision about warrior one. Can we rise straight up from here, or should we walk that right foot to the right a little bit more? I just gave up in the middle of the word right. And then we'll sweep ourselves straight up into warrior one. All right, from this space, let's bring those hands together at heart center, and we'll push those straight out. Create that sensation here of full expression, of full engagement of the shoulders. And then when you feel ready, we'll slide back into the right hamstring. Just hold that strength. And then rebend the front knee. And we'll slide back into that right hamstring. You really want the back of the leg to activate because it's countering what's going on in the front of the left. And then bend the knee. As we bend the knee, you can feel how that front of the left, that interior left side, really gets some sweet depth here. And then we'll go back one more time. And from here, we'll sweep the arms up. Bend the knee to get into the full depth of warrior one, side two. Very deep warrior. Spin up. Put those hands down to the mat, and let's step forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Feel the front of both legs as you settle into this fold. Really allow for that, and then start to feel like someone has a string attached to the sacrum and they're pulling you up. So the tailbone's getting pulled up, your head's dropping further into the shape, and the anterior crease of the hips is getting deeper as you take that fold. Try to keep the anterior hip depth as a key. Plant your hands and walk back into down dog. So we're trying to keep those hips high as we come up into this shape or walk up into this shape so that we have full depth in the front of the hips. And then come down to hands and knees, flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Child's pose is going to be a brand new situation here. All of that anterior space, all that anterior activation. And so this seeker has now become a yogi. And in becoming a yogi, he's found this teacher that he really connects with. And she, in his eyes, just has everything he is looking for. And she's been teaching yoga for 30, 40 years. So everything just seems fluid and easy. And he starts conversing with her about how he can find this ultimate fulfillment that she clearly has. And we'll give ourselves about 20 more seconds here. She, of course, is a good yogi, asks questions. When you're ready, let's slide our hands out in front of us. If they're not already there, we'll inhale ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, let's curl our toes, lift our seat, and find our way back into down dog. And take your right foot and extend it straight back and behind you. As you lift to that right foot, push into the finger mounds and drive that right foot towards that back upper corner of your room. And then step your right foot forward and into lunge. From lunge, keep the hands planted. So we want to have some connection here. And then slide back into your right hamstring. So you get the left heel staying lifted here, right hamstring activated, right big toe mound actively pressing into the mat. And then bend your right knee, ground your left heel, make a decision if you want to walk your right foot to the right or not, and we'll sweep ourselves back up into warrior one. From warrior one, we're going to bring the hands together, heart center. Push the palms out away from us if it's accessible. If not, palms go towards us. And slide back into your right hamstring. Now, we want to make sure both feet are super connected to the mat. The strength of the shape is going to come from the feet, and it's going to build up into the hips. And we're going to start to lean out into those hands. So the front knee can bend. Remember that we don't have anything telling us we have to have that leg totally straight. So we're reaching out and feeling length on that posterior chain, getting an elongation of the back and driving those hands towards the front of your room. And then bend the knee, sweep up to a traditional warrior one. Then spin your left heel up into crescent. Float the hands down to the mat. And one more time, slide back into that right hamstring. This time, think about pushing the hips back, but don't flail open so that the tailbone pushes over to the right side. Push that tailbone straight back down the middle of your mat. Bend the front knee, step the right foot back into down dog. Find this symmetry in the shape. Think about balancing the weight distribution. Think about lifting into the hips. Think about driving from the hands. Then slide your left foot straight back into three-legged dog. As that happens, push into the finger mounds and elongate the back. Then step your left foot forward. As we land here, as we settle here, hands stay connected. Slide back into your left hamstring. Once again, we do not need to fully elongate the leg. We're just looking for activation on that hamstring. And it should come from the hip space. Bend your left knee, ground your right heel. Make a decision if you want to walk the left foot to the left and sweep yourself straight up and into warrior one. From warrior one, hands to heart center, press straight out. Then we slide back into the left hamstring. Make sure that the feet are anchored. That is where the strength from this shape starts and ends, really. And then drive yourself out into that length. Pushing and extending the capacity of the hamstring here. And then when you feel right, when you feel ready, front knee bends. We come back up into this big wide warrior one. Right heel spins up to crescent. Hands come down to the mat. Step the left foot back into that same depth of down dog, now with a much easier time balancing. Let's walk forward into fold. Inhale to half lift. Exhale back into fold. As you do, splay those toes out wide. Let the weight of the body just blossom across the foot, entire foot mound. Drift your awareness to your sacrum and either roll or sweep yourself up and let your hands come together, heart center. Feel how much and potential fatigue kind of radiating across the shoulder girdle. And then let the shoulders relax, but squeeze the shoulder blades back into that relaxation. So there's not a great way to show that, but just more engagement across the shoulders, even with the hands at heart center. Oftentimes we'll collapse forward in the shoulders. We're gonna stay super wide there. And then sink back into your version of chair. Now your version of chair has a ton of room right now, but it also has the fact that the hamstrings have some pretty significant fatigue. Make sure you stay nice and stacked in the tibia and fibia. And remember, the torso can be as low as is necessary. And then we'll sweep all the way back up. Exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. And as you come back into that fold, pay attention to the hip girdle. How much fatigue, energy, and effort is radiating from that hip girdle. And then plant your hands and walk yourself into plank. We get into plank, wrist, elbow, shoulders stack. Squeeze into the core, squeeze into the glutes, create stability in the middle of the body, and lower yourself down to your belly. Especially important for that trunk space to be fully engaged when we have this much fatigue in our stabilizing joints, the shoulders and the hips. And we're gonna go right to Sphinx here. So slide the elbows underneath the shoulders. And what we're looking for in this Sphinx is a relaxation. So I want the elbows, the arm bone structure, the scaffolding to be holding us. And then let your head relax. Let your shoulders relax. And the only thing we want to avoid is everything collapsing towards the middle. So if the front of the shoulders are collapsing in towards the midline, just give yourself enough squeeze to activate and see if in that activation, you can just settle there. And we're gonna give this 10 more seconds. And we'll drop down to crocodile. And we just breathe here. And so this yogi asked the questions, he's saying that he has figured all these things out. And so, what have you observed me figuring out? And he talks about how, you're always so bright and chipper, happy. And your energy is always radiating and bouncing and loving. She says, okay. And what have you observed that makes you come to these conclusions? We're going to be here for another 25 seconds. Just 25 seconds of being at ease, thinking about how delicate you can be with your body here, because we've done an awful lot of work, of challenge on the body already. And when you feel right, when you feel ready, hands slide back underneath the shoulders, bring some strength into the musculature just above the knees. Let's press ourselves up to hands and knees, tabletop. Come hands and knees, tabletop, curl your toes, lift your seat, find your way back into down dog, drive from the finger mounds, feel that engagement, lift into the hips, get that elevation and that sensation of a long plane that is the back of your torso here. And with the idea of keeping that long plane, so as much distance as we can, let's slide our left foot straight back and behind us, three-legged dog. And then step our left foot forward and into lunge. Ground the right heel and let the right hand carry you up into two. Feel the hips open up here, settle into that hip space, slide back into your left hamstring. And as you settle here, bring your hands to heart center and then turn your torso towards warrior one. And then we're going to do a revolve triangle, but we're not going to do the hands. So the hands are going to stay right at heart center. And we're just going to bring our torso down. So if we drop the right hand, take the left hand, that's revolve triangle. But we're keeping the torso neutral, and we still have this revolve triangle energy. So feel the strength on the back side of that left leg. And then draw yourself up. Blossom back into warrior two. So knee bends, arms extend. We find that width once again. Spin the right heel up. We'll come into crescent. Think about the full depth of your crescent here. So you land, you're likely pretty high. Settle back into the back leg without bending the knee. So we have that knee locked down. And then float those hands down on the mat. And we'll step the left foot back into down dog. Shift forward to plank, glute squeeze, then lift the seat back into down dog. Till the right foot straight back and behind you. Then step the right foot forward and into lunge. Ground your left heel. Left hand takes us to warrior two. We get that width, that floatiness of the shape. And then the hands come to heart center. And we turn the torso. We get that full torso rotation. Slide back into the hamstring. Feel the strength. And then we go to that revolve triangle, which is just extension of the torso forward. Gaze is roughly straight down, right? You can imagine where you would be gazing. Obviously, you could turn your head, but we're trying to keep the torso relatively neutral here. It just allows for more freedom of this posterior chain in the revolve triangle energy, which is a very deep shape. And then we'll bend the knee and blossom back into two. Settle here. Spin that left heel up. We come into crescent. Create the full depth of your crescent by driving back into that left leg, really settling into the hips. And then float those hands down to the mat. Step the right foot back and into down dog. And walk forward for the last time. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Head lets go. Neck gets long. Body wholly elongates into this fold. We'll drift our awareness back to our sacrum. Sweep or roll ourselves all the way up. Bring the feet as close together as you can comfortably get them. So we're going to have a pretty good amount of internal awareness here. And we're going to use that to compensate for the fact that the hamstrings have a little fatigue. So there's some internal squeeze, abductors are active. Sink the seat back into chair, not knees forward. Really, this can be harder to do with the feet together. It feels right to go knees forward, but really think about sitting back into a chair and then rise all the way up. Exhale through our last standing forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. Walk yourself into what will be the last down dog or class. Get all the way back into this shape. Splay and play here with the depth of what you can create from finger mound to tailbone lift. And then when you feel like you've had enough, let's come down to hands and knees. We'll flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. And this will once again be the last time we're in a shape. Last time we're gonna have our belly facing towards the mat as well. Think about relaxing completely into this child's pose. Think about where you can utilize the hip space to be more at ease into this depth. And we'll give ourselves just about 20 more seconds here. And then as you're ready, fingertips gripping the mat in front of you. Inhale, pull ourselves forward to hands and knees, tabletop, and sweep the legs out in front of us so that we can transition onto our back. No forward fold needed tonight, just straight onto our backs where we can receive the significant effort we put in tonight. Legs can be wherever feels comfortable. Arms can be wherever feels comfortable. The key here is that you just have the opportunity to appreciate what you've done. Feel how different the body feels, how different the body reacts to your breath. Give ourselves 30 more seconds here. And then when you're ready, let's bring our knees into a bent space. If you have your prop super handy, grab that. If not, it's all good. We'll figure it out from there. So just staying on your back, I think, is probably more valuable than finding a prop. And let's just let those arms go out to cactus or T and start our hip sway. Knees just rocking side to side here, expressing what feels comfortable and right. When it feels appropriate within you, let's let the knees fall over to one side or the other, whatever side feels most calling or drawing towards you. And so this seeker turned yogi responds with, well, I see you teaching class, and I see you bouncing around the room and who you are. And she says, okay, where are you seeing me? And he says, well, in class. She says, okay, but where are you seeing me? And he's not sure where to go with this question. He feels like he's already very accurately described exactly where he's seeing her. And he thinks maybe this has something to do with work. Is that her place of work? And he's like, at work? And she's like, no. Where within you, are you seeing me? And he says, well, my eyes. He says, yeah, eyes are receiving light, eyes are receiving information, but within you, where are you translating that information? He says, oh, my brain, obviously. Yeah, my brain. Okay. And she says, yeah, you're seeing me within you, within your brain. And he doesn't know where to take that. So he says, okay, well, I also know you've done a lot of traveling. I want to travel. I want to go around the world, and I want to be able to be immersed in different cultures, places, and things. When you're ready, bring your knees back to neutral. So if you have this prop, we're going to give ourselves a little supported bridge. So tailbone would lift and the prop would slide underneath. If you don't have the prop, let's go the opposite way. Let's go bottoms of the feet together, knees out wide. So, and obviously, if you do have the prop, you have both options, right? So if you want to go knees out wide, that is perfectly, if it's calling to you, go there. And if you don't have a prop and you want to go into a supported bridge where you support it yourself, you're welcome to do that too. We're not going to be here for an incredible amount of time. So we'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. And so she says, okay, that's fun. I traveled the world. I've gone to a lot of places. I've been to a lot of things. What about that excites you? And he really talks about wanting to be in these new spots. And she says, okay, well, when you're in a new spot now, what is it like? When you're right, when you're ready, we're going to come out of whichever shape we're in. So we're either bringing the knees together or elevating and sliding that prop out. And then we'll let the knees fall over to the second side, whichever side that is for us. Knees fall over to the second side. And he says, there's something about just being at a new beach and holding the sand in your hand and letting it just run through and over your fingertips. She says, well, when you're at a new beach, where are you experiencing that? And he starts listing off the new beach vacations he's gone on. And she's like, no. Where are you experiencing the sensation of the sand running across your fingerprints? And he says, well, usually I like to be a little bit away from the water itself, so there's no splashing. But I still like to have that coolness of the wet sand. And she says, no. Where are you experiencing the sensation of the sand against your skin? And I was like, okay, sure. I'm experiencing that sensation in my brain again, in my nerves. My nerves are feeding my brain the sensation, and my brain is interpreting the sensation. She said, yeah, true. But I'm not sure what are you telling me here? I'm asking you to help me experience the world in the way you do, not in the way I do. When you're right, when you're ready, we're going to bring our knees back to neutral. Let the eyes close, let the awareness drift within you. Ask yourself if there's anything you might want or need before Shavasana tonight. And if there is, offer that for yourself. And so she asked him, why do you think I'm experiencing the world differently than you are? And he says, well, because I hear you talk about the world differently. And she says, okay, where are you hearing me talk about the world differently? And he says, again, in class. She says, well, where within you are you hearing me talk about the world differently? And he says, no, 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 you are saying these things. It's not happening within me. You're saying them. When you feel like you are ready, when you feel like you are right, release yourself into a state or shape of stillness. And let your body completely relax into that state or shape. And so he kind of pushes back. He says, these are words you're saying. I'm just hearing them. And she says, no, I'm just making sounds. You're giving those sounds meaning within you. She says, if I said those same words in a language that you were unfamiliar with, it would just be sounds. And it's just sounds now that you've attributed meaning to. And we'll start to bring some movement into your fingers and your toes. Into your wrists and your ankles. She says, everything that you think you're seeing within me, movement up into the elbows and the knees, is something that you've created within you. Movement into our knees, hips, shoulders, neck. Jaw, tongue, eye. Eventually we'll bring enough movement to our body that we can transition from the shape we are in back into a seat. In that seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes close. And we'll inhale our hands together at heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you ask yourself one question? If someone could show you that every single thing you're searching for is already within you, would you keep looking externally? And see how that changes your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of tonight's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you. Love the heck out of you. Have a beautiful rest of your week. I'll be back on Sunday if you want to recharge. And we'll do this again next Monday if you want to move. Love you. Mwah.